The rain had begun to fall in thin, silvery threads, weaving through the quiet streets of the old city. A faint hum of life echoed from distant corners, honking cars, murmuring conversations under umbrellas, the soft slosh of tires against puddles. Amid the gray drizzle, a young woman hurried along the cracked pavement, clutching a worn leather bag close to her chest. Her name was Amina. She had missed the last bus again. The streetlights flickered uncertainly, casting brief halos of light over her path. She sighed and glanced at her watch, almost 10 p.m. The city buses stopped running after 10:30, and she still had 3 blocks to go before reaching the main stop. The neighborhood around her was not exactly friendly after dark, but she had no choice. Her shift at the hospital had ended late, and the next bus wouldn't wait for her. As she quickened her pace, her mind wandered back to her father's voice on the phone that morning. He had sounded weaker than usual. "Don't worry about me, Beta," he had said softly. "Just promise me you'll take care of yourself. That's all I want." She had smiled through the exhaustion. "I promise, Abba." A car splashed past, sending muddy water across her shoes. She sighed again, tugging her scarf tighter around her shoulders. Just as she reached the bus stop, the last bus of the night rumbled away from the curb, taillights glowing like 2 red eyes in the rain. Her shoulders slumped. There was no shelter here, just a broken bench and a flickering streetlight. The next option was to walk nearly 4 miles home. It wasn't impossible, but the thought of trudging through empty streets at this hour made her uneasy. A deep voice startled her. "You missed it too." She turned. A man stood a few feet away, his face half hidden beneath the hood of a navy raincoat. He was tall, maybe in his late 30s, with tired eyes and the kind of calm presence that didn't demand attention. Amina hesitated but nodded. "Yeah," she replied quietly. He smiled faintly. "They never wait, do they?" "No, they don't," she said, managing a small laugh. "I can walk you part of the way, if you'd like," he offered. "It's not safe alone at this hour." Amina tensed slightly. Her instinct warned her to be careful, yet something about his voice was different. It carried neither insistence nor threat. Just genuine concern. She hesitated before answering, "It's all right. I'll be fine." He nodded respectfully. "Fair enough. But if you don't mind, I'll walk a little ahead. I'm heading the same direction." They began walking, a few feet apart, each silent for several minutes. The rain grew heavier, and the streetlights became fewer. The city's hum faded into an eerie quiet. Every few steps, Amina could hear the faint crunch of the man's boots ahead of her. After a while, he spoke again, voice soft and thoughtful. "You work at the hospital, don't you? I've seen you there before." She blinked. "You have?" "Yeah," he said, glancing back. "My mother was there last month. The oncology ward." "You were kind to her?" Amina's eyes widened. "Mrs. Rahman?" she asked. He nodded. "Yes. I'm her son." She smiled in recognition. "I remember her. She was always smiling, no matter how tired she felt." "That's her," he said with a quiet laugh. "She passed away a few weeks ago." Amina's smile faded. "I'm so sorry." "Thank you," he said softly. "Before she died, she asked me to do one thing, to help someone someday the way others helped her. She said kindness keeps people alive in ways medicine never can." They walked in silence after that. The rain dripped from rooftops, forming tiny rivers along the edges of the road. The world felt smaller, quieter, like everything had slowed down just for this moment. Eventually, they reached a dimly lit intersection. The men stopped. "This is where our paths split," he said. "My home's that way." Amina looked down the road ahead, still long and dark. "Thank you for walking with me." He smiled faintly. "Be safe." She nodded and stepped away. After a few seconds, she turned back, but he was already gone, swallowed by the rain. When she finally reached home, soaked and shivering, she found a small envelope tucked into her bag. It hadn't been there before. Her name was written neatly across it in a firm hand. Frowning, she opened it. Inside was a folded note and a few crisp bills, far more than she earned in a month. The note read, "You look too tired to walk home in the rain. Please take this as a small repayment for the kindness you showed my mother. You reminded her of hope when she had none. This is just me keeping a promise, to her and to you. Hassan Rahman. Amina stared at the note, her throat tightening. She hadn't even noticed him slip it into her bag. She wanted to return it, but there was no address, no number, just that single signature. She sat on her bed, tears mingling with the rain still clinging to her face. For the first time in months, she allowed herself to cry, not from exhaustion or loneliness, but from the quiet, overwhelming warmth that comes from being seen, truly seen, by a stranger. The next morning, she went to the hospital as usual. Life returned to its rhythm, patients to check, reports to file, medications to distribute. Yet, something inside her had changed. She began leaving small notes for patients who looked frightened. She brought tea for the older janitor who always worked late. She even started saving a little from her salary, not for herself, but for someone she didn't yet know, someone who might one day need it. Months passed. The envelope remained tucked in her drawer, the note carefully preserved. She never spent the money. Somehow, it felt sacred, a reminder of the promise that kindness could travel through the hands of strangers and still reach the heart unbroken. One cold December evening, as snow began to fall over the city, Amina was walking home again when she saw a little boy standing alone outside the bus stop, his school bag clutched tightly against him. His face was pale with fear. She stopped. "Hey," she said gently, kneeling beside him. "Are you lost?" He nodded, tears brimming in his wide eyes. "I can't find my mother," he whispered. Amina's heart ached. She wrapped her shawl around his shoulders and said softly, "It's all right. We'll find her together." She took him to the nearby police booth, waited until the officers found his mother, and stayed until the boy was safe in her arms again. The woman wept as she hugged her son, thanking Amina over and over. When they left, Amina reached into her pocket and found the small envelope, the same one Hassan Rahman had left for her long ago. She smiled quietly, realizing what she needed to do. That night, she wrote a new note on the back of the old one. "To whoever finds this, once, a stranger kept a promise to me and reminded me that kindness is never lost, it just changes hands. I'm passing this on so that it can find someone who needs it more. When you can, keep the promise too." She slipped some of her own savings into the envelope and left it on the bench outside the hospital, beneath the glow of the streetlight. Then she walked away. Weeks later, an elderly man found it while waiting for the early morning bus. His hands trembled as he read the message. He had been worried about paying for his wife's medicine, but now, this small miracle had arrived out of nowhere. He clutched the envelope to his chest and whispered, "Thank you, whoever you are." And so the promise continued, crossing streets, homes, and hearts. It traveled in secret pockets, through whispered prayers, through hands that gave without knowing who would receive. Years later, Amina sat on a park bench, watching her own daughter chase pigeons across the path. The sunlight danced on the fountain nearby, and laughter filled the air. A man approached her, carrying a small donation box for a local clinic. He looked tired but kind. She reached into her bag and pulled out a few bills. When she handed them to him, their eyes met for a moment, two strangers, bound by a wordless understanding. He smiled gratefully. "Thank you, miss." Amina smiled back. "Just keeping a promise," she said softly. As he walked away, she looked up at the sky, where a thin streak of sunlight broke through the clouds. Life had come full circle. Somewhere out there, perhaps miles away, someone else was reading a note that began the same way her story had once begun, with a simple act of compassion from someone they didn't know. And perhaps, in that quiet moment, they too would whisper to themselves the words that had once changed her life. "I'm just keeping a promise." Because kindness, once given, never truly ends. It lingers in memories, travels through time, and waits for the next open heart to carry it forward, like a lantern passed from one soul to another, lighting the darkness a little more each time. And somewhere, perhaps unseen but always near, the stranger who had once walked her home might have smiled too, knowing his mother's final wish had come true. A promise kept. A kindness reborn. A stranger's gift that would never fade.